Not that long ago, there was a thing on the internet called Man vs. Bear. So it started with a TikTok video where a guy asked a bunch of women on the street, would they rather get stuck in the woods with a man or with a bear? And almost all of them, I think, but one, chose the bear. And the controversial part was that men in the comments were struggling to understand why women were choosing the bear, almost unanimously. So that was some time ago, but I decided to make a video now because recently I watched one of my favorite content creators, YouTubers, and I'm not gonna name the person or show the video because this is not about drama, it's about my thoughts on the process that emerged when I saw the video. And the video did feel like betrayal. It did sting because I trusted that content creator to be reasonable with an ally, etc. That's a guy, and the video basically can be summarized in the following two statements. First, he said that all the women choosing the bear must be rage baiting or something. Like, there is no way they're actually logically, consciously choosing a bear. And the other one is that a bit later in the video, he said, I don't believe that more than 50 out of 100 men would sexually assault or kill a woman, while with a bear, it's almost guaranteed. So, yes, by the way, I'm not going to use the R word. YouTube is kind of stingy with it. I'm just going to use the term sexual assault. So, with the first statement, so the reason, let's look at this from the guy's perspective, from the man's perspective. The reason they think that the bear is obviously a wrong choice and the man is obviously the right one, because a man is still a person, right? How scary can be an unarmed person, while the bear, a wild bear, especially if it's a brown bear. If it's a black bear, some people reported who live in the areas filled with black bears that they're like kind of like raccoons, you can just shoo them off. But with brown bears, with grizzly bears, that's not gonna happen. So men are like sitting there perplexed, like, why would women choose a bear? Are they stupid? Did they not see Revenant? So this causes them to jump to a conclusion that this must be something to it. This cannot be a genuine answer that women give in the comments to that TikTok video and overall on the internet, that they would choose a bear. So men, to give credit, men acknowledge that there is an underlying subtext of sexual assault, and that women don't trust men, and that there are comments like, at least they would believe me if I was attacked by a bear, etc. But still, when it comes to the debate, and when men see that women unanimously, almost unanimously choose a bear, and I would say all women in a sense that almost all women, like 95 out of 100 women, they think that must be rage baiting. They immediately put on their tinfoil hats and become conspiracy theorists and think they're trolling. There must be. All of them somehow collectively agreed to troll on the matter, and there is no disarray in this. They all are in it together and they're all trolling somehow, or rage baiting or something, but there is no way they're actually thinking the bear. So let's first discuss why men think that the bear is an obvious answer, outside of that fact that I just said that bear is a deadly animal. So it comes from the fact that men are raised very much differently from women in all of societies around the world, not just like Eastern or more conservative societies. In like basically everyone in the world, men are raised to meet violence with violence. Men are raised to fight back. So usually nowadays we are at the consensus that we don't want to initiate fights, we don't want physical confrontation to come like by our instigation, from our instigation, but there is always this idea that if someone attacks you, you should fight back. So like men are supposed to be drafted into like into army if the war breaks out, and men are always pushed to this idea that they need to protect, to defend the families, their loved ones, etc. I had it happen to me because for 26 years of my life, I lived undercover as a guy. It just so happened. So I had the male upbringing, and I know it first party, right? It doesn't necessarily come from, it doesn't have to come from the parents. My parents were very open-minded and didn't have an opinion in the matter. They didn't really push me to be like a fighter, but the society did. I remember that there would be like a random distant relative somewhere on the family at the family gathering. Then there would be some random teachers at school, and not in a sense that they wanted to raise bloodthirsty maniacs. They just like a physical ed teacher or a crafts and whatever is called a teacher, where they teach you how to sew things. That teacher would like, if a boy asks how to throw a punch, the teacher would respond and give advice. Also, I base it off of the fact that there was a moment when I was standing with a group of boys, and the girl came to us and she asked, I want to learn how to throw a punch. And the interesting part is that she didn't come to adults. She didn't come to her brother. She has an older brother, her father, or even her mom or her sister. None of them. She came to other boys because other boys were happy to help and like just share the knowledge, while adults were quite likely to say, no, girls don't fight. We're not supposed to fight. Girls are supposed to de-escalate. Girls are supposed to not go with the aggression, and if nothing else, cry and beg, but not fight. So she came to other boys and she asked how to throw a punch. And her first initial reaction was to form a fist like this, where you put the thumb inside the fist. And obviously this way you'll break your thumb. And I know that I did martial arts as a kid. And obviously you put the thumb outside. But I have a theory, it's a hypothesis. I didn't conduct a social kind of a survey, but I have a feeling that out of 100 guys, almost all of them will know that you put the thumb on the outside. And I'm pretty sure that out of 100 women, not all of them would know that. Women don't have this idea that comes as almost a visceral muscle memory kind of reaction to meet aggression with aggression. And I have two stories to share with you, and both women that told me those stories, I asked them and they said it's okay for me to share without any details. But I have to give you a warning. Both stories involve sexual assault. I won't go into any details of the sexual assault. I will only talk about the feelings of said women in those stories. But in case it's still too much, there is a trigger content warning, but there is a warning. So, one of them, she shared with me that once she was a victim of sexual assault. So there was a sexual act without consent. And she told me that she just froze. She couldn't do anything. She just waited for it to be over. Like, this is what was her body reaction. She shared with me that apparently when something so shocking happens, she just freezes. When something dangerous, threatening comes your way, you freeze as a woman. This is quite often the case. I'm telling you all of this to show that for a man, this is very natural to see another man, even if the other guy is a bit bigger, to think, if push comes to shove, if all comes down to fight to the death, I will hold my ground. I will even win, but at least I will go down swinging. That's not the case for most women. For most women, if there is a threat of violence, that's already over. It's done. Unless you can somehow talk a person out of physical violence or just doing something violent, you're done. You're cooked. There's nothing you can do. And most women understand this. They don't have it in them to fight back. It's not the first initial reaction. That's not the case for me, for example. In the debate between the man and the bear, I would choose a man because I know I can handle myself. I'm 6'1". I mean, I'm not particularly skinny, but like I have some body mass, and I know how to throw a punch. I did martial arts as a kid, so I would be able to handle myself. I know that if it comes to it, I trust my body to activate this, what do we call it, killer instinct mode, where we just want to defend. Like our body does anything it can to defend ourselves, and women know this, consciously or subconsciously, that their body won't. Their body would just crawl up and cry and try to defend themselves. I'm not saying for all women, but I'm saying for those women who don't do that in a case of emergency, they had to, most likely, unless they were very lucky and not have this kind of a brain, they had to fight through this programming at certain points in their life. Maybe they were in fights with other girls or with men, who knows. Maybe they took self-defense classes. Maybe they were in those kind of situations. Those women who fight back, this is not because their life was easy, most likely. They had something happen to them that pushed them. Again, I'm generalizing, but on average, a woman would not fight back, just at all. So when a guy thinks, I see a man, I can fight a man, but I can see a bear, I cannot fight a bear. For women, it's equal. It doesn't matter. It's two entities that you cannot fight. There is a man that if he chooses to do something to you, that's it, you're done. And there is a bear, which is more or less the same idea. And I am lucky to not have this programmed into me, which is a big deal when because the same way it was programmed into me, like I remember distinctly in a country where I grew up, there was a commercial with a famous boxer who said, like, "Dear boys, I wish that you grow up to be real men that can protect their loved ones and their families in a time of need." And those kind of social pressure, it builds up. And just like it builds up in men to have their body spring to action when they're threatened, again, not all men, not saying that it's as simple as binary, like men do this, women do that, but this is the social construct we have installed upon men, and then the same installed upon women. But the opposite one, obviously. Don't engage, don't fight, just beg and hope for the best. Basically, just inaction is your best form of defense. And I'm lucky to not have it in me. I have to admit that most of the time when someone is angry with me and someone is being aggressive and like a jerk to me, my first reaction isn't constructive, isn't civil, which I want to be. I have to overpower this impulse and this urge. But my first reaction quite often is to turn to that person and say, "Shut the hell up!" And I can do that. Most women can't. Programmed might not be the best word, but you understand what I mean. Like, this having the experience of them growing up in this environment, which helps them develop a certain techniques to protect themselves. And it's bad enough that we are entertaining the conversation where it's, I don't think that's more than 50% of men. Do you realize how small of a percentage does it take to make women completely terrified of men, to a point that they would rather take their chances with the bear and hope that the animal is not hungry and leave them alone? Because again, a wild animal doesn't kill for the sake of it. Wild animal kills because it has a reason. It's hungry, it's threatened, it feels threatened, or it protects its cubs, for example. If those three criteria are not met, or either one of them isn't met, there's a chance that you can just walk away. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's a wild animal. The chances are very slim. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bend it. The chances are very slim. But do you realize how terrified women are of men if they're still choosing a bear? Think of it this way. If you put down a bowl of candy at a party, and this is a very small candy, so like 1,000 candy fits into a bowl, and you put a sign next to it like chocolate candy, treat yourself, people will be willing to take a candy. But if you replace the sign with chocolate candy but 5% are laced with a laxative, the chances that anyone would try a candy would drastically drop. And now imagine that instead of laced with laxative, it says laced with cyanide. Do you think that a single person would try a candy out of the bowl? It's just 5%. 5%. 50 candy out of 1,000. And that's enough. I mean, hell, if we're talking about cyanide, 1% would be enough for no one to try that odds. What are you gaining? A little bit of pleasure of eating a small candy? Really? And like, unfortunately there is an infamous joke that, not really a joke, that when guys are joking about blind dates, they think like the worst that can happen is that she's not the way she was in the pictures. What do the girls think is the worst thing that can happen? That they don't make it back home alive. Alright, so this was the first part. This was the part where men think I can take that man on, but I cannot take the bear. And for women, they cannot take either. But men still are perplexed by the second part of this debate, and I think it can be distilled to that phrase I heard in that video, which, if I quote, sounds, I don't think that more than 50 out of 100 men would sexually assault or kill a woman. A man states, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that is the experience. Well, what happens if we ask women that? Oh wait, we have. And they answered, a bear. Actually, this debate is a very smart, maybe unintentionally, social commentary and social experiment where women were asked, do you think more than 50 men would try to do something to you if they know they're consequence-free? And women answered. And it all comes down to this fact that men don't believe, and this is important, this is not about science or proof or evidence, it's about belief, that it cannot be the case. There are like maniacs and criminals and serial killers or whatever it is. They're like maybe, what is it, less than 1%? Like behind a decimal point kind of percent of the population? Those people can sexually assault women, but everyone else wouldn't. Like, I live in a civilized society. All my friends and my bros and my people of like male gender, it won't do that. And men believe that that cannot be the case. That must be women must be rage baiting with the bear answer, right? And here comes the other story that I wanted to tell you. So again, no details. So there is a city, a bar, a girl, a guy, and a bartender. So there was a guy who was quite popular at a certain bar in a certain city. And he was charming. He was always welcome at any table when he decided to join. He was like a great guy. Everyone loved him. But on top of that, once the bar faced financial difficulties. And that guy, well, apparently he was quite rich and probably still is, but helped the bar out financially. And this elevated him from just being a great guy that everyone loved to just being basically a bar saint. A local saint that saved the bar, but everybody loved the bar. And the guy, too, by extension. So one day, not that many people are still at the bar because it's early. A girl walks in, a regular. And the bartender notices that the girl looks as like pale as death. She comes up to her, the bartender, she comes up to a girl and asks her what's wrong. And she quickly realizes from the conversation that the girl was just sexually assaulted. She quickly asks the kitchen to fix a meal and tries to talk some life into the girl. Well, while this is happening, the guy who's at the bar at the moment sits down, starts eavesdropping, and then at a certain point, without anyone asking him, just wedges himself into a conversation, interrupts the bartender and says, you know, I've been listening, and every story always has two sides, his side and her side. Maybe you did something to lead him on. Maybe you provoked him some way. At that point, the bartender had the eyes the size of saucers, like filled with blood, like red from anger. But she calmed herself down. She politely asked the guy to not interact with a woman who'd just been sexually assaulted and took her away from him. The rest of the story isn't really of importance here. The point is that everyone thought that this guy was such a great guy. He would never be that kind of person. He would never be a sexually assaulting type. And then he swoops in with that kind of conversation. Like, I'm telling you this story because I want to tell men who are watching this, and if you have male friends, like guy friends, who don't understand the man versus bear debate, show them this video. Because men, they just don't believe that other men talk to women way differently than they talk to men. And I'm talking about like one-on-one private conversations. When a man is one-on-one with a woman, especially if the man knows he's consequence-free, other men will never know how this one in question treats women. Never know. Only women will know. The man? No, they won't. And they would swear on it. They would think like, he's such a great guy, he's such a great friend, a bro, he's such a great boyfriend or a husband or a father of like a daughter or two. There is no way, he's a teacher or something, there is no way he would do this to a woman, right? Like, this guy is such a great guy, he would take a bullet from me. I do not believe that that guy would be the sexual assault type. And I think that sometimes when those kind of things happen among celebrities or like content creators, influencers, a lot of guys, they just chime in to defend the guy. And I don't think it's always because they know what happened and want to cover up for a guy. Sometimes they just genuinely believe it's not possible. It's not possible that people can be so two-faced, so removed, that there will be one person with men and completely different person when one-on-one with a woman, consequence-free. And men don't think that can be the case. And I have a continuation of the first story. The circumstances of this, and I know internet well enough, so this story I'm not emphasizing the assault itself, because it was at a special type of party, which is a, well, sex-related party. And I know what people in the comments will say. Well, if it's a sex-related party, what did you expect? So I want to state that it was very specific, very clear in the rules of the party, and that was checked. Everyone had to link their social media when they attended the party, and everyone had to consent that they've read the rules, and the rules state that that nothing happens without consent. You have to ask consent. Consent is mandatory. What happened to my friend? There was no consent. The guy just took her hand and she didn't realize what was going on and took her to a corner of a room, and then she just froze up and she didn't do anything while this was happening. And after that, she just wanted to go home. She didn't even want to report it. There were like admins, basically, people who were supposed to look after those kind of events. She didn't even report anything to them. She just wanted to go home. Another thing I wanted to tell about that story, that the guys that attended that party, when they were confronted, not in that case, but there were other cases where they didn't ask for consent. The girl was more feisty, or I guess, again, maybe that's a bad word, but more willing to defend herself. So she objected and took them to report the incident. And the guys were like, what do you mean? I paid to attend the party. It was a paid party. I paid to have sex, not to talk. What do you mean I need to... What? I just see a girl, I do the thing. What do you mean... What? That was the guy's reaction, quite often. The other one was, if you didn't want it, why did you come? So, if you came here, you kind of gave consent by, just being here, so I just acted on it. And I paid for it. It's my right. There's that kind of party. It just shows that quite often men have this worldview of women, of being just, like a towel. You need to use the towel, you take the towel, use the towel. What do you mean you need to ask whose towel it is? Or whether it's okay to use the towel? It's the towel, I need to use the towel. I have my needs, I'm a man, I'm gonna use the towel. And those men who are watching this, who think, there is no way, this is savagery, this is medieval, no men do that. Well, we asked the women, and they chose the bear. And again, I want to emphasize, men will never know which of their bros their friends that they think can take a bullet for them would be that kind of man who treat women this way. So when women tell us that sexual assault is horribly underreported, that it is extremely common and way too just, everywhere, maybe we as society don't respond with, it's the rage baiting.